All right, my fault. Everybody, I was trying to adjust the color of the camera, and it just too much information for the computer. So, as we're waiting for folks to jump back in, hopefully they'll see us. Um, one, two, three. All right, no one's back on yet. So just to reiterate, for people who are picking the previous thing, if you didn't see the first half, we're in the middle of talking about the Megyn Kelly situation and how her firing. A lot of people align and have the belief systems of Trump, but they don't necessarily have the same power. So, can you see me, Charles? I'm back in.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I'm not seeing any numbers pop on. I don't see anybody watching. That's the weird thing. You
Not even you're
you
not even getting me.
you can see. Yeah, I'm not even seeing you. But you can see me. Did you have to reset, or you went to another window, or
I'm reloading.
interesting? All right, we got two people. Um, yeah, so we're still learning this. So these are our experimental days. Hopefully, we had so many people in earlier. It's a shame. Um, But, so repeat your statement until more people jump back in, in terms of, nationalists. I mean, well, I guess first off, do you like a lot of people, they refuse to believe that Trump is a racist or white supremacist because they don't have tape of him saying the N-word. Now, what's interesting as of today, Caitlyn Jenner wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post saying that she regrets endorsing Trump because she can clearly see now that he's not working in the favor of transgendered people. So, and a lot of people are like, well, geez, I hate to say I told you so. And but there those same people that may feel that way might still feel that Trump is not personally a white supremacist, although he aligns with it, just because we haven't heard those tapes. But we've seen his actions over decades. So, I mean, what's your general feeling about this? I mean, do you believe the conspiracy theory, Charles, that Trump is trying to create turmoil, within this whole system, or is he really in the process
Well,
of draining
what?
a swamp?
First of all, I have no doubt he's a racist. Okay, I mean, all you need to do is look at his history. Okay, his history, his father's history. This guy is an out and out racist. Okay. The other thing is this: the people who are behind him. He's a Manchurian candidate. All right, and the people who are behind him. Uh, if anyone looks at what the alt right is all about, Steve Bannon, the alt right, these people do not see any other culture outside of Western civilization, Europeans, as being any culture that has um, helped advance civilization the way Europeans have. Okay,
Mhm.
and the alt right will tell you that what they fear is, you know, not they maybe not go and say it in terms of what the KKK used to say with um, people of color uh, mongrelizing the purity of the white race, and that this culture, they see this culture, American culture, as a white culture. This is a white world, and they want to keep it that way. And what is scaring them tremendously is this fear of all these immigrants. Why do you think that they're going after the immigrants? Because the immigrants is all part of people of color coming here, joining with the blacks who are here, mixing of the races, and watering down the white race of America, where eventually, numerically, white folk will not have the numbers they've had before, and with no longer having the numbers, they're going to lose power. And as I told you before, power is all about politics, oligarchy, oppressive rule, wealth, economics, and rhetoric.
So we have more people back in. So in terms of Megan Kelly, you know what? It just it seemed like a racist move on NBC's part to basically get rid of a successful show, Tamron Hall. At the election of Trump, there was a big purge of a lot of black commentators on all the news networks, but to replace her with Megyn Kelly just seemed odd. And now we're less than 2 years into her contract, and she's self-destructed. It seems so.
Well, the whole thing with what MSNBC did is the fact that it's one of the reasons why I hate MSNBC. It's the reason why um, I just feel, as I said before, the Democrats, they're a bunch of pussies. Excuse my expression. I don't mean it. Uh,
Yeah, we got it.
and
Yeah,
yeah, okay. The whole thing is, you know, Trump and Mitch McConnell and all these boys, they win on being bad guys. They go after what they want to go after. As I said before, the old saying is, Democrats fall in love, Republicans fall in line. They're about the eye on the prize. They get the job done. And they don't care about being nice guys. Nice guys finish last. MSNBC, when they hired black folk, it was all a part of uh, dealing with the fact that we had a black man in the White House, and we had to go that way. Okay, soon as Obama was on the way out, and they saw the results, everyone, another thing, just a little sad sidetrack. Don't fall for the okey doke with these polls. The Democrats, from what I see, as I told you, Mike, I do not see them winning in the midterms. Okay, these polls are a joke. I don't even think they need to release polls until after the event. These polls are just some way to trick people. But the thing is, after the election and they saw they lost, then they went and they looked at the success Fox was having with all this BS, and they pulled Megyn Kelly. Now, the mitigating thing they did with Megyn Kelly, they felt, well, they had a way of addressing the fact that they took her from Fox and she had some controversy with Fox, but that she still had somewhat of a calling card for MSNBC because she got into it with Trump and she caused Ailes. She and Gretchen over there at Fox caused Ailes to lose his position.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that was the way they could justify pulling Megyn over. But to your point with the purge of the blacks, Cameron, she quit. But I guess she said, "Why should I play second fiddle to the white Barbie doll?" I mean, because I love Cameron, and when I say what a lot of people don't see, that we're talking about blackface, but the white face is that the few blacks that they do keep, blacks on TV, they're safe, acceptable blacks. Uh, the,
Hmm.
and I like Craig Melvin, but if you look at Craig Melvin, um, uh, you look at two people in prime time. You got Don Lemon on CNN,
Hmm.
and you got Lester Holt on MSNBC or NBC.
NBC. Yeah.
They have a certain look to them, and this takes me back years ago when I grew up in New York. New York, we had ABC, and you had John Johnson. You had I remember the furor over Spencer Christian when he came on to do the weather.
Mm. Wow, that's going way
Okay,
back. Yeah, I remember him.
yeah, but in the days when we had Melba Tolliver, I don't know if you ever heard of Melba Tolliver.
I've seen
You
clips of
know,
her. Yes,
okay, well, Melba Tolliver,
with the
they
fro.
wanted her to get rid of her hair, the hairstyle she was
Hmm.
wearing. So you have to have a certain look. That's what the white face I'd be talking about. You have to have a certain look. I'm not sure. I think Raymond Navarro. He used to wear a thick mustache and he looked real Hispanic. But when they made him like a weekend anchor, he had to get rid of that mustache.
Mm,
Okay, so there's a certain look you have to have when you're a minority, where you can't look too threatening. They don't like you too dark. Um, even one of the guys who could master on the news, he could do everything. Art McFarlane, all right, over 30 years with ABC. He could do sports. He could do weather. They became him before I think he retired. He was the education editor, but he was great. But he could never get that anchor position. Okay, and so the thing is, the point I'm trying to make is this:
mhm.
the illusion of inclusion. What people have to realize is that in this country, if we get blacks anywhere where they're on top, they will allow a certain number of blacks, a certain number of blacks, and the blacks they allow, it's even better if they have a certain look. This is all part of the game of illusion of inclusion.
Right, and which is
Where
which
where
well,
Go
let me
ahead, Mike.
introduce the topic officially because
Hmm.
we were going to fold that in. For those who are just tuning in, we have Charles Woods on the line with us, talking black. We're trying to do this every Thursday to cover the issues of the week. This week, the Megan blackface situation was big, so we just finished talking about that. But but we had a break in the feed, so if you want to catch up on that, that's on the previous chunk of the live stream. And now we're folding into Sorry to Bother You, which is was a movie came out a few months ago. It's just coming out now on DVD, and it deals with sort of code switching and the illusion of it. And so basically, for those who haven't seen it, it's Boots Riley, who was the lead rapper in the group The Coup out of the Bay Area. He made a feature film with a Lakeith Stanfield from Atlanta, where basically he's the average guy, he gets a job as a telemarketer. And on his first day on the job, Danny Glover's sitting next to him, an older black man. He says, like, look, if you really want to succeed in this business of telemarketing, you've got to use your white voice. And they sort of hype it up where they actually have a white person dubbing in the voice. And the minute he does that, he becomes super successful. And then all the sort of trappings that come with capitalism and our ideal of success start to come into play in his life. Then, not disappointing, the movie takes a left turn where it deals with the end game of capitalism, which is that in a result of always looking for cheaper and cheaper labor, uh, they want him to represent sort of a hybrid species of new workers. So it has a lot. I don't know if it's for everybody's taste, but it gives you a lot to think about. I don't know. Did you have a chance to see it, Charles?
As I told you, I dozed off on it. I'd like to look at it again
Hmm.
because uh, I think it's in the end maybe the message was to become a part of this system. You have to buy into the culture. You have to, as they say, stick to the script. If you want to succeed, you have to be, you have to put on your white face. You have to be white. You want to make it, you got to be white. And in being white, what that's going to do? It's going to cause you to lose your identity.
Right.
And so
And then
that's where
also when you're chosen, someone else puts you in the position ultimately where, in this movie, they want him to be the Martin Luther King for his generation in terms of keeping the people that really want the fair wages, the people that are protesting and trying to unionize. They want to basically separate him from them and then give him the perks that will allow him to be the quote unquote leader of that movement, so to speak. So uh
yeah, well, um, yes, And that takes me to uh, a message in another film I saw. I told you about that I was surprised that I would like so much. May I
Well,
mention that film?
let's not get too far in. I mean, well, I know what you're gonna say, but I don't know if people are understanding illusion of inclusion too much. So
Well,
if you can
illusion of
if you can fold it in to what the other movie.
illusion of inclusion is that's something me and Paul Mooney used to talk about all the time. And he always would say, if you got the right complexion, you got the connection. But
For the
the
protection.
thing is, the illusion of inclusion is what we get is a um, a defense against our arguments of blaming the system. You see, once you want to say it's blacks can't get ahead, they can't enjoy full justice, full equality because of the system. Then the argument is, even with the blacks they pull out, they say, well, look at Bill Cosby, look at Oprah Winfrey, uh, look at all these rich black folks.
Yeah.
They made it. They made it because they worked hard. If you didn't make it, it's because you didn't work hard. So what happens is the illusion of inclusion defeats the argument that it's the system. The illusion of inclusion makes for the argument that it's the individual's fault, not
Right. Yeah,
not
you
the
didn't pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's something inherent in your character
yes.
that keeps you in that position. But now, in 2018, you got even white people complaining about you have the Occupy movement, 5 6 years ago, where they're saying, like, look, and Bernie Sanders got a lot of votes just on just pointing out that the rich keep getting richer. We're not in a democracy. This is an oligarchy, and the uber wealthy, the people that have billions of dollars, are in such have such a mentality that they don't even see us as humans, which may be one of the things that start to bother you, is alluding to. When you're part of a workforce as opposed to an owner or whatever, and we're talking about super wealthy, not just people that have a little app or something. We're talking about people who have generational wealth that maintain things. As Dave Chappelle says, the person who owns the color blue, that level of wealth, um, just doesn't care enough. But then it folds into something I always want that you always point out, the dinner table scene.
Well, yeah, the dinner table scene in Trick Baby. When I saw that, I just was elated because it reminded me of what I read years ago. The statement that was alluded to Lenin, that most pernicious form of government on the face of the earth is America, because in America you have this illusion of inclusion, and the reason why the system persists is because it allows a few members of the oppressed class to become somewhat a part of the oppressor class. And because of that ability of a few to transition into the power elite class, it gives this focus by the members of the oppressed class this illusion that, well, okay, whatever they did, if I do it, I can make it too. And so nothing ever changes as far as Lynn is concerned. The system just perpetuates. It continues on. It continues on, where people lose sight of the fact that a lot of people, we hear this thing that Trump talks about: "Make America great again." Well, when I heard that, I said, "When was America ever great?"
Well,
And
for black folks, that's
then I said, "You know what? Let me qualify that. He can say that. because America, if it has been great, it's been great for certain people, and that's where white privilege is. It's
Mm.
been great for white people, but it's never been great for black people.
Right.
And then there's some, a lot will give you the argument that America has been great for black people. You know how, Mike?
How's that?
Well, if you look at Trump's history, Trump has won on the very campaign that Pat Buchanan ran on. But Pat Buchanan came at the wrong time. His timing was wrong, okay?
Hmm.
And Pat Buchanan will tell you that if it wasn't for America, then 600,000 black Africans would never have been saved by Christianity, would never have had the benefit of welfare, food stamps, Medicaid, Section 8,
Mm.
all at the largest of good white people. All right. And not too long ago, you had Congressman Steve King of Iowa, among others, who had the same thing, that civilization has never been advanced by any other group more so than Western civilization, Europe. Okay. So there's this whiteness, this this um, this thing that is attached to whiteness that is the greatest. It's attached to the people who have been the greatest people in the history of mankind. And the threat to everything good about what white people have done for the world is threatened by people of color. That's the message that's going on. That's also the alt right.
Yeah. Well, you come from a culture that looks at everybody else as primitive or subhuman. You may feel entitled to that belief, but however,
But didn't Trump also say?
the solution is not to kill and imprison everybody that doesn't look like you.
But remember, don't forget. Um, Trump also, how do you refer to the African countries as shithole countries?
Well,
You know?
that's more further proof.
Yes.
As if we need a smoking gun on this. I don't know. I certainly don't think so. But so going and then so basically, illusion of inclusion, it's very insidious in my opinion. If you look at the Haile Grima thing, he takes it all the way back to Africa. It's like um you know, if you continually siphon off the cream of the crop, and then you create a system where through integration, folks don't ever have a need to come back and bring bring back more information to the people because they've become one of the elite, or they have money or whatever, a different class of people. Then we get to where we are in 2018, where we have a massive underclass and a lot of pointing fingers, and things are pretty bad right now in terms of race and class, violence, sex. It seems like we tend to promote the worst of us, and we hardly ever get to see the best of us. And I think there's a lot of reasons, but it's something I wanted to address because it's something that comes up very, very regularly within the comments, especially when we post videos from 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It's the same song, but I think when people see it in relation, it makes you feel a certain way. And I just felt a little overwhelmed this week because I my intention is never to make people feel victimized or hurt by how much things have changed, but I think it's about you sharing information and informing people so that at least they know, all right, there's ways to define this. It's not just your imagination, and it is something that we can change or have control over if we choose to.
Well, I mean, I just see H3.
Yeah, yeah, I'm reading it too. Yeah,
Okay.
H3. When we don't know our own history, we tend to believe the bull crap we feed on. That's absolutely true.
Like what Roland Martin told Megyn Kelly, we don't get history. We get his story. That's where I tell you part of the acronym for power. The last letter R is rhetoric. Rhetoric is about controlling the narrative. We're being fed um, the white man's story of us. We've been denied our true culture, the history of our culture. We need to read on that. Um, one of the things that's connected with this blackface imagery is that blackface is a way of mocking blackness,
Right. And so
denigrating it, demeaning it, so that for too long, and even to this day, I think we're back. Black folk as a people are back to hating their own color. Okay, and so um, part of the reason why is because in this culture we're fed images that says blackness is something disgraceful, something to be ashamed of. And one of the most popular books in the history of mankind has been the leading source of anti-black sentiment, and that's the Bible.
mhm.
And a lot of people don't realize that the Bible has been, by implication, by interpretation of racist, it's been used um, to portray and to um, depict, describe blacks as a curse, as something that
Yeah.
inhuman.
Yeah, well, it's everything is built into our language. It's kind of interesting. A friend of mine was getting me to read the Tao Te Ching. He's spiritually minded, and a lot of if you just look at the source, then all the sort of things that define become secondary. I think on the first, there are obviously lots of other people who have read this book. I'm just getting into it, but he's saying like, it's sort of like yin and yang theory. So yeah, there is lightness and there's darkness, but it's all part of a cycle. Yes, there is hate, there's love, but it's all part of one thing. But somehow within our American culture, Western society, opposites tend to have a different meaning, the divide of things, as opposed to even like a he and she, there's power placed upon one or the other, light versus dark, black versus white, and it's all built into the language inherently, and it's all programmed into our subconscious from the day that we're basically put here, so you know
Well,
mhm,
what has to be understood, Mike, is and semiology deals with signs. People have to see language is the same thing like illustrations. It concretizes thought. What plays into um, the negativity that can be used against black folk is all of the associations blackness can be connected to that people in a culture perceive as being negative.
mhm,
Okay, um, dirt. He's dirty. Blackness can be associated with that. Afraid of the dark. Little kids don't turn the lights out. Blackness can be associated with that. You see, so it's easy by association to have blackness become what it has become because
mhm.
symbolically it relates to negativity in ways that whiteness does not. Whiteness
Right, and the
relates
angel
to
angel
purity.
angel food cake, devil's
Okay,
food
so
cake.
that's where they can go to the Bible and use the Bible in that symbolic sense, and then use the Bible because it's supposed to be a holy book to say, see, it's in the Bible, and all of the symbology that works against blackness, it just it's just
Right.
fortified with the language of the Bible.
Right.
Okay, because I mean, one of the things you have to realize is if you know language, you know that what are 8 parts of speech. One of them is conjunctions, and when someone says, "I am black but comely," that's in the Bible Song of Solomon. The conjunction black. Why that but? In other words, I'm
Mhm.
black, but I'm beautiful.
Right.
See, so you're qualifying it because the natural tendency is say
Right.
I'm black and I'm ugly.
With the way things
No,
are,
I'm black, but I'm beautiful.
the
That
way
conjunction is still in there.
things are normalized, and I'm from my heart, I'm solution oriented. I'm a male. I'm a Virgo. I'm solution oriented. But just to clarify for folks that are watching, I think the reason why we share this information is not to make people feel bad about themselves or the situation or nostalgic for the past. It's really to be have a better understanding of your place in the world. Would you say that, Charles, or what do you feel our mission
Well,
is here? Because I just don't
he-
want people to, and reparations. Jay Jones, I think, yeah, it would be great, but no one gives up power. So I don't. It'd be great if people recognize, but where do we have the power to get reparations within a
well,
typical lifespan? So.
here's the thing.
Hmm.
With everything I've said,
Hmm.
it's in response to the narrative, the rhetoric. Okay, so real black is about saying, we need to be in control of our images, of our history. Okay, we need people to bring authenticity, truth to it, speak truth to power. The power that exists, it's powerful because they have a mission to stay in power. And the way you stay in power, racism is built on a foundation of falsehood. It's based on a particular mythology that's used to perpetuate the desired um, narrative, the history that says white is right, everything else is wrong. Okay? The only way you're going to change your condition, you have to decolonize your mind. That's why when James Brown came out and "Say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud," that was a beautiful movement. It was a beautiful moment. Notice how long it lasted. It
Right.
didn't last long because with saying I'm black and I'm proud and all of the things that came as a consequence of that feeling, we started getting the truth about African culture, African history, and the mindset led to our seeing ourselves differently outside of how white folks wanted us to see ourselves. And that was a threat. It was
Mhm.
killed. Okay. The same way when people say Black Lives Matter, you notice the reaction to that? Oh no,
Right.
you can't say that. What do they tell you have to say?
All lives matter.
All lives matter. You see, that's
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
threat is in if you say you ever notice blacks say anytime we speak about
Mm.
ourselves and see ourselves a certain way, they want to accuse us of reverse
Reverse racism.
ra-
Yeah.
racism. You
So,
see,
this is the root of my issue. I mean, and I would, if you want to talk about what happened to James Brown, there's a great interview on YouTube of James Brown from 1979 on the Detroit Black Journal, and he's basically in limbo. Disco has killed his career basically, and he's still releasing albums. And he's talking about empowerment from his standpoint and what the industry needs. Very brilliant mind, genius business person James Brown was, and he's basically said, I took it upon myself to in the revolutionary movement to put out these records, and the system came back on me so hard. He said, "Look, if they just leave me alone and let me run." my business and be in charge for another 3 or 4 years. I can turn things around." But he basically was saying like, "Look, I never was, I'm about the human race. I'm talking about black culture. I'm not talking about racism, you know." So that whole reverse racism thing hit him, not to say he didn't help himself or hurt himself by endorsing Nixon the way at that time also, but even the strongest, time after time, we see the backlash come where folks get in trouble with the IRS or whatever. And in the late 70s, his regret was that he had spent so much of his resources, time, and energy to try and promote education and get people that looked like him in a position of power in terms of business, and they virtually all cheated him, robbed him, went away when there was no more money. So it's kind of a sad thing, but it's also, again, you know, meant to empower. It's not designed to make people say this is a fruitless cause. But in terms of societal structures, yes, reparations would be great, but the people whose job it is to sign off on that, we already see what how they're behaving, so, you know, the root for me, Charles, is this illusion of inclusion, the fact that the brainwashing happens where people get so seduced by the money that they never think to come back to educate, to inform the next wave of people. And now my fear and frustration when it comes to film and is it justice or representation is what I'm saying is that now that in 2018 you have a situation where, at least for the present time, black film, black representation has been commodified. I feel like a lot of people, their motives and intention is strictly about making money and not about giving us material. I wouldn't even say works of art that we can look back at 20, 30 years from now and see part of ourselves from it. Like if somebody would just take a snapshot of 2018, and yes, there's been some great movies, but the large percentage of the time I'm talking about Cardi B and Cat Williams more than I am Hate You Give. Charles, you still there?
Yeah,
No, I'm sorry.
yeah. The way I see it, Mike, is a lot of times I know Malcolm X. He, when he was saying these things, they said, "Are you a racist?" He said, "No, I'm not a racist. I'm a racialist." Okay. Um, a number of blacks will counter with, "I'm not being racist. I'm being racialistic. I'm looking at it from a racial aspect." But here's the way I see it. Getting back to blackface, blackface, as I said, is a way of mocking blackness. Whiteface is a way of appropriating that which will make you successful. To your point, we lose a lot of our black talent. We lose them to this culture because they get caught up in the money game. They get caught up in the trappings of capitalism. And once they get caught up in that, we lose them because they move out of the community. Their concerns for the community change, and it's all about a different color now. It's all about green. They say it's not black or white;
Mhm.
it's green. So we lose so many of our talented uh, black folk because this culture, it has the trappings. Capitalism is the most exploitative system on the face of the earth, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, and what it does is it people it makes you a body for sale, and a lot of times with someone say, "What good is the world having it, and you've lost your soul?" And that's powerful because the whole thing is you have to know what's really important in life. Yes, having money is important, but what good is having money if you don't know that you don't need all the money in the world? You don't need money to try to use that to buy you happiness. You have to be happy knowing that there are always going to be three basic things you need in life, and that's food, clothing, and shelter.
Mhm.
If you have to have it on levels that exceed basic levels, then there's something sick. I mean, and that's where capitalism, it works on exploitation and waste. You know,
And
people
also,
go broke trying to get the latest TV. They get and the latest TV. 2 years from now, they don't want that TV anymore. They want another TV.
well, that's consumerism. No, but I also, and I have no critique of other artists when we're talking about this. We're talking about the way the system works. Right now, the turn of the 21st century, we're decade, almost 2 decades into the 21st century. There's a lot of massive change happening, and a lot of it is due to technology. And I don't know everything that's going on, but a lot of what we do, as Black folks, we either want to reinvent the wheel entirely and not use the pre-existing systems, like, or we're late to the game and we're not on that innovative level. So you don't know how many people I run into. They're like, we should have our a black version of Netflix. It's like, yeah, we do. It's called YouTube. You don't have to own the freaking pipes to use the water that manifests through it. This I think this is the best way to reach people and build audience that exists. Literally anybody with a computer has access to YouTube, but you still have folks that are trying to make movies to sell to Netflix, and it's like, it seems odd to me, why people we're always sort of like a little bit behind in terms of like the way what we see in value is until somebody else places the value now, and then we're rushing to get them, where when we don't where we have the ability in this age to develop new territories, to develop new businesses, and to make work that people want to see. We're still copying what's already been done. Remakes of older white films now with black characters and things frustrate me, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at some of the comments.
Yeah, let's catch up with the comments.
Jay Jones, he's been a steady follower. Thank you, Jay Jones, and he's got some great insights. Um, Scoring 57, it's about values, not capitalism. And yes, what I'm saying, that's where I'm talking about the integrity. You have to know, you have to have those values. If you don't have values and maintain your values, then you get caught up in a system and you'll let the system turn you into something that's no good. That I don't mind being in a system where people can make a lot of money. But you tell me in America, where all just a few people have more money than millions and millions of people, and we have poverty, we have
Right.
homelessness, then something's wrong with that system. Okay, and
Yeah.
and they've negated and really uh, made the concept of socialism a dirty word.
Right.
But socialism and communism, the values, the true values of any ism, is that if in Africa, the culture of Africa, it's about each man having to his need. It's about
Right.
community. People looking out for each other. I love a system like that. You follow,
Hmm.
and so to me, this is a system that it's easy for me to feel the way I feel when we're at each other's throats over issues of color, where we've lost all sense of what humanity is all about. I remember when Pearl Bailey was challenged because she married a white man. And she said, I didn't marry a white man. I married a man of the same race I am, and that's the human race.
Right.
That was her defense. You know what I mean? That's ideal. That's beautiful. But the thing is, this battle we're having, where it becomes racial, why are we here? Why are we fighting each other over such nonsense? It's because this system operates on divide and conquer.
Right.
Okay, when you look at the occupation Wall Street, how come that movement died? What killed it?
Well,
You know, and what were at the
it was
roots of it? What was
infiltration.
what,
The people that they were fighting ended up throwing money at the folks to get them to stop.
I mean, you even have some people.
They got infiltrated. The Koch brothers and people shut that down. They
They
started
shut it down. They shut
they
it down,
found they put their own money up and created their own movement, you know.
and the way they shut it down is one of the ways they attacked it is by saying that these were a bunch of hippies,
Mhm.
dirty old hippies, and what they know how to shut things. The
Oh, the
same way they
media.
shut down.
Well, that's the thing.
They,
That's the main point. So
hmm
so the media, which I'm a part of. Again, Charles, you've have 70 years of studying this, 50 plus intense research, and I have a lot of time. I follow you, but also I'm just a weirdo where I look through the cracks in terms of like because I'm still waiting to see myself. Very few movies I get a chance where I say, wow, that really hits me in a way that where I'm unified, not just as a human being. Like obviously, there's great movies that have nothing to do with black folks. Like you can watch Goodfellas all day long. I don't care. But in terms of black culture represented, um, I'm always interested in those movies kind of slip through the cracks and reveal something about the way society works or a place in it as opposed to just pure entertainment or fantasy. I know we have a divide sometimes when it comes to the black exploitation era because a lot of that is just pure fiction. But then if you just look at it also, like Superfly was done for so little money, they had to shoot on the street. So it's a great movie to watch with the sound down just to see how people were dressing and what New York looked like at the time. So, there's a movie out now that I know you had a chance to see called The Hate You Give. And it's an adaptation of a book. I had a chance to talk to Algie Smith. I saw it a few weeks ago, and I was just waiting to hear your thoughts and comments on it.
well,
And we can fold that back into the ongoing conversation. I know a lot of
yeah.
folks are commenting.
Uh, as I told you, I was pleasantly surprised. My wife and I, she said, "How you feel?" I said, "Okay, let's try to make this." And we went there. It was quiet, and I loved the film. I'll tell you what I loved about it. Um, I think more than anything else,
Well, it
what
kinda
I loved.
echoes something that you've been thinking about and like, hitting me over the head the last year. You had an idea similar to this, so I had a feeling you would like this.
Well, I mean, you
It
know what? The
and
the
it
main thing that I loved about it, my man Russell Hornsby,
Mhm.
his character of the
The
Maverick
father.
Carter, the father, the relationship he had with his wife, someone who, because of the trappings of society, got caught up. He took a fall for the gang,
Mhm.
did some time, but he became a strong black father, strong black family man. There was
Right. He had
a
a great
beautiful black
great
family
speech
that was
there.
portrayed, and this black woman, his wife. I mean, at one time I was saying, "Damn, she's running things," you know.
Mhm. Was that Nia
She's
Long in
running
there?
things.
It's been a couple weeks since I saw it.
Um,
Uh,
Regina was a Regina Hall,
Regina Hall, I'm sorry.
right? Um, she was on top of stuff, and I was expecting for him to just flare up and to do the black man black woman thing with it, to at each other's throats. But
Yeah.
I mean, he just he knew the two most important words in helping a marriage survive, and that's yes, dear.
Yeah,
but
I think, I gave my review on the radio a while ago. I did like the movie. It's made for high school kids, so, going in, and I have to agree, it's a good film, I enjoyed it. I felt that, it's the first real true Black Lives Matter movie that really deals with the
Yes,
issues, and also I liked, even though I didn't like some of the things that they weaved um, in terms of, her private school life and the interracial romance and stuff like that, it just felt like it was there for commercial reasons. Um, I did like that it addressed the whole idea of code switching. This person literally has to be two different people in her existence, in order to survive at this prep school. Has to hide an entire half of our identity, and then she also has to cope within the environment where literally people are being killed left and right, getting into fights, cat fights, and all kinds of stuff within her own neighborhood. But then this inciting incident happens where she recognizes her power, comes into her own, and naming stuff is super powerful to me, so, and I know you were talking about something like the birth of a revolutionary or something like that. This is as close as I've seen so far to a movie that deals with
yeah.
that arc.
My idea of a movie is called the birth of a militant.
Mm,
Um, uh, when the film comes on, the family's getting to talk. Black Panther, the 10-point system. I thought that was beautiful. But the thing is, what happens when you get more people, as the gentleman you were with not too long ago
mhm,
in Indiana, what he said, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu.
mhm,
The more people we get with the ability to tell their stories, and we not just see stories that are filtered through the white gaze, or an attempt to please through commodification, the white power structure and what the white power structure feels will be successful.
mhm.
When we get more people telling our stories, there's something I learned um, uh, about this film that relates to uh, my daughter.
Which
Um,
is
um, this experience that Star had is similar to the one my daughters had, going to a, a prestigious school, a high school, and where she said, she had to deal with white folk who questioned her presence.
yeah.
And a lot of times what happens is, this, like you say, this switching, or this
Well,
changing of identities.
it's double consciousness, but that's just been
It,
updated.
it's real, and my daughters had to deal with that, and I'll never forget when we went out to try to get her in a very, very prestigious high school, because that was always our concern. The concern that this family had uh, about the choice of sending them to the local school and not having them maybe come home
Mhm,
from that school, and then to put them in a different school where, okay, it just so happens where it's predominantly white. That's the choice a lot of parents, black parents,
right,
are forced to make for
right.
the safety of their children, for the
Well
education of their children.
Well, even the movie, it starts off with them getting to talk, which like what to do when the police stop you. And it's interesting the dynamic that's set up just from the opening scene because the Algie Smith character, he apparently was never given the talk. He didn't know the protocol when the police detain you, and it leads to his death. So right off the bat, it's sort of reinforcing the the value of having a strong family unit within the community. There's a lot of good stuff in
Well,
this
that
movie.
goes to also what happened in Panther.
Mhm.
You have um, the black who grows up without a father figure, without a without a family unit,
Right.
and how devastating that could be. And that goes through the discussion. They want to say what's problematic for black kids is the fact that they're coming out of broken homes. We hear that argument all the time.
Mhm.
There are two sides to that story. But the thing is, this film dropped a lot of jewels. Issa Rae's character,
Mhm.
the lawyer, the justice figure who was going to represent Star, um, she said, "Here's another black boy shot down because we can't say he was unarmed because his blackness is the weapon they fear."
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's been pointed out in the comments here that it's based on the book The Hate You Give, which is a huge bestseller a year or 2 years ago. So the plot point, I'm not saying, that they made, the interracial relationship for commercial reasons for the film. It's also for commercial reasons for the book. I don't think the book would be as nearly quite frankly, I don't think the book would be nearly successful if it didn't make an attempt to unify the issue, but I think for me as a
Well,
black viewer, it took away from the experience, but at this because the second half of the movie, the guy is literally given very little to do, becomes Star's story.
I think, like I said, you know, I can point out a lot of things that's wrong with the film, but I think more positive
Oh,
weighs the negative.
without question,
That,
and I'm
there's
coming
a
from
lot
a
of technology, but the point I was going to make is
okay.
what you have to look at in terms of relationships. We look at a lot of our stars, our black celebrities.
Mhm,
A good portion of them are married to white people,
mhm.
and that comes from, they'll tell you, well, this we fell in love in in the work setting. Where do you meet uh, your mates? Usually where you associate with. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's something. I mean that
yeah,
it falls in line with reality.
yeah, and you got 1 D out of the 3 in that movie, so
Huh?
you have in the 3D effect in Hate You Give, you have one of the 3Ds pops up in there, I think, just as an
You
aside
saw
as an
a
aside.
D in that.
Yeah, I didn't write it down. Well, he's not tainted by class. He's obviously well, wait, I think he's got a class issue. He's not there's a class issue there, and, the devastation comes on the other side of it with the other relationship. The denigration, there's some denigration there, no? Or did you not sense it?
I didn't sense it. Um, I think the faux pas that was made on his part was the thing that upset her when he popped the condom on her.
Mm,
Okay, and my apologies to Ms. J. Jones. It's a lady.
okay.
Welcome, and J. Jones. You've been very very involved in this conversation. But the thing is, um, I didn't have I thought I was going to have an issue with it, but I didn't get caught up in that.
Mhm,
I saw what I saw. What the attempt was that there was something they did that I thought was very subtle and very poignant.
mhm,
Where you look at these protests, the Black Lives Matter. You see a lot of white folks out there,
right.
and they're pointing out, a lot of that is like, here's a good tip, a good way to skip school.
Yeah. Yeah, they showed
You
yeah.
know, and like Star tells one of them who's, that she even made that distinction. Some people you think are your friends are not your friends,
Yeah, her
and you don't
turncoat
need them.
her
But the thing
turncoat
is,
friend.
white privilege is, yeah, you can sympathize. She said, you can appropriate blackness, but you can turn that on and turn it off anytime you want to. I always have to be black.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then like when it comes on, she's saying, yeah, right away people seeing you trying to impress you how hip they are.
Yeah.
right away. Like they're going to try to impress you with what they think black is, and so I thought George Tillman did a wonderful job, and but getting to the illusion of inclusion, or getting back to how this system perpetuates, as I said, is on divide and conquer. Issa Rae, she says, it's our division that keeps this system going. It's our unity that will crumble it.
Hmm.
And the thing is, when you look at all of the giants we've had to represent us, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, we don't have these leaders anymore. We don't have any strong black leaders like that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it goes to a Japanese proverb, Mike. It's the nail that sticks up. You know what happens to the nail that sticks up?
It gets bent down. Yeah. You don't.
It gets hammered down. And
Yeah.
and so
But you can have
the other thing I want to say,
fingers and they form a mighty fist, Charles.
huh?
You can have individual fingers, but together we form a mighty fist. That's from the Booker T. Washington film that we put up last month.
Okay,
Yeah.
and you know what happened with Booker T? Booker T had one concept.
Hmm.
W.E.B. Du Bois had another. Malcolm X, and Do the Right Thing. They pointed out his way was this way.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King's was another way. That shows there's no monolithic thinking within the group. But here's the thing, and that causes also gets back to the division.
Uh-huh.
The solutions are there, but what keeps us from getting to a solution is that we lose sight of what is basic and what is common to the problem. You see, and we let other things just
Yeah.
sidetrack us. But the thing is, I felt this was a better film than Spike Lee's The Jewish Klansman. And
Stop.
huh?
Was that a Freudian? So somebody saying I'm silly for doing the Jewish Klansman. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
Also coming to DVD soon. 4K
yeah. I
Blu-ray.
thought this was a better film than Spike Lee's The Jewish Klansman. And I tell you why I feel this film did not get the notoriety that The Jewish Klansman got.
It's two on the money.
It's a lot like Whose Streets. And I'll tell
Yeah.
you another thing. When you watch this film, as opposed to what the Jewish Klansman did, this film did not paint a pretty picture of the police department.
Hmm.
Okay? And if you know anything about Angie Thomas's book, the book was protested against by a number of police unions.
Right. So it's just a
Okay?
struggle.
So so it goes just like with Will Smith's Concussion, um, with Free State of Jones.
Yeah.
Any films that have strong messages against the system. I'll tell you another thing
Well,
that
even
was unique.
another Fox movie, Birth of a Nation. You
Birth
know.
of a Nation, Nate Parker's film.
Yeah.
Here's another point. You know what was unique about this film?
What's that?
That was scary, and it was an anathema to what we usually get in motion pictures. When did Spike Lee's Jewish Klansman take place?
In the
What's the
70s.
setting?
70s.
70s.
Yeah.
This film is now.
Hmm.
This is about now. Usually, the films we get about race relations, it's presented
Yeah.
with what we call geographical or historical distance. That's another thing that
Yeah.
was unique about this film.
Yeah. And well, we'll catch up with some of the notes, but I did want to touch on one thing. Yeah. So the reason I make fun of the hand thing, same reason I didn't like Girls Trip, because I'm of an age where I remember Queen Latifah putting out like conscious rap songs like UNITY, and then fast forward 20, 30 years later, even beyond living single, it's girls trip, and you got people peeing on each other, on a suspended rope and doing all that stuff. I'm like, this to me, I don't know what's going on, but I've very disappointed in Queen Latifah's movie roles for the most part when you compare them to the music that she put out. So, and I think I'm justified in saying that. But anyway, um, and then also Hate You Give. I think it just came out officially what, a week ago. I don't know how well it did when it opened broad. But the other criticism I
It's
was given,
about 14 million now.
yeah, so that's okay, but it's certainly not the same kind of reviews or anything that Black. You said Jewish Klansman. I'll go with Jewish Klansman. Got, but the other factor, um I lost my train of thought, Charles. In terms of the plot, going into the story, I think the trailers do it a disservice because you already know half the movie. It's really, like, dramatically, because it does take place in contemporary time, and we are inundated with week after week of hashtags and uh you know unjustified killings by police and everything. I think me as an audience member was a little bit ahead of the story in terms of the way they laid it out, because um she the issue is she witnesses this murder by a cop, and her parents don't want her to testify because of the repercussions, right? But I think they could have been a little more clever in terms of, it's not just the repercussions of the the uh, the police, but also the gang members that don't want to her to expose the trade. So she's fighting a double battle in this movie in terms of helping to save her community, which is a very, very powerful statement to make in a film as well.
Yeah, what's interesting is how they always accuse uh, black communities of helping to perpetuate the crime in the community by not snitching.
Hmm.
And so, I've seen it a couple of times where people say, "Well, we'll snitch when you start snitching on the
On the
bad
police.
apples among the police."
Hmm.
You know what I mean? But the thing is, um, when I told my wife I wanted to see the film, she said, "Well, okay, if you're up to it." And she said, "Why you want to see it?" I said, "Well, something I can, having seen it, I'll be able to discuss it with Mike." So she
Hmm.
said, "Okay," but she was reluctant to go because we've seen trailers, and as you say to your point, the trailers kind of already, She said, "I didn't want to go watch a movie and it, to come out being devastated, how seeing this stuff, and it's going to make me sad and whatnot." But as I said, what was interesting, the way they had Tillman. Um, when you saw it, did they have that piece where Tillman comes out and thanks the audience for coming to watch it?
Uh, no, I saw advanced screening, so they didn't have that at my advanced screening.
Okay, so that was unique because before the film comes on, Tillman says, "Hi, we just want to thank you, that everyone involved with the making of this film, for coming out to see it. It speaks to a lot of what's going on. We hope you enjoy."
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so that's a recommendation, and I know there's another movie you want to recommend before we wrap up. And also I want to go through all the statements and conversations being had in the chat. But I know, in terms of winding up the summer, there's another movie that you feel really strongly about that I think we discussed somewhat, but I know you said you wanted to share it again.
Well, the film I really was surprised by. I thought they were going to do it differently, and that was Denzel's Equalizer 2. I was blown away by it. I thought it was going to be more action packed because I think what hurt the first one, even though it did make close to 200 million, I thought what hurt the first one in today's movie going audience, there's everything's got to be bang 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 bang.
Hmm.
And this film, even though it opened differently, it still slowed to a pace where it was very methodical, very much into the storytelling. But what I loved about the film is that for the first time, and you know, there was another strong black character,
There's like a surrogate son relationship that is developed throughout the story.
and the relationship that developed between Denzel's character and this black boy, the young man who played in Barry Jenkins' Moonlight.
Mhm.
That was, I just thought that was, it's about time. And one comment I want to make, I always talk about, we did the thing, I spoke about the slap heard around the world, where for a long time, because of white fragility, we could not have a black man defeat or show defiance in a victorious way against white folk, white men. And the only time later on where they would allow black men to fight whites is if they had a white ally, a white person, part of the battle. Equalizer is unique because Denzel does not have a white ally. He is
Mm.
large and in charge, and he is doing damage basically by himself. There's no white ally. Now, some people say, well, he's got the white lady who he was close to.
Mhm.
She was helpful, but she was not someone who fought side by side with him, and then at the end they walk off into the sunset together. No,
Right.
Denzel. This film is unique. It's made close to 200 million. He and the director, I think they crafted with this film more of a film that speaks to blackness, more so than a lot of the films Denzel's been doing. Because for the most part, race is not really an issue. In as I told you, in the films that our black stars make, they mute the race issue,
Right.
and that's for commodification purposes.
Well,
But I really
you know,
recommend Equalizer too, and I thought that relationship with him and the young man was superb.
yeah, and I think also in terms of looking at Equalizer, you also have to look at the movie Antoine Fuqua executive produced that Jamal Joseph directed. Can't I'll come with the name unless you do that. We showed in Pittsburgh, but that's a similar story about someone taking back control of their own community. And
The one with Omari Hardwick.
yeah, yeah, I can't think of the title off the top of my
Hmm.
head, but I'll figure out, I'll write it down. But yeah, so yeah, it seems like the conversation has shifted over to how much melanin folks got. Um, Not sure what we can do about that. But I mean, obviously, lots of channels that talk about white supremacy. Basically, you know, um, it's a tribe. We're tribal people, and you know, uh, I just I don't promote. I don't like the under. I don't like under. I mean, I'm from Philly. We typically underdog city, but I think in sharing the information, it's about helping people recognize the power and having a place that people can conversate and feel good, and it's just about themselves and feel like they're part of a community, but also the larger community. So when we talk about illusion of inclusion and divide and conquer, those are things that I believe exist, and um it's just something that we have to deal with, is the same way, if it's forecasting rain tomorrow, you bring an umbrella. So but I'm very excited that there are filmmakers out there that are telling stories that are showing us things and giving us symbols of empowerment, and I want that to continue. I think that's my main reason for wanting to share on the channel. But it's not about victimhood or those were the days and all that stuff. I think we're generally in a much better position than we were, but we certainly lost things, for a lot of reasons. Things that we felt belonged to us are no longer ours, but but I think that's the whole way the country's going, the whole way the society's going, and white people are suffering the same way black people are suffering. And again, I will use the illusion of the mighty fist. If we just share more information and talk more, we'll get to where we need to be, I think. But I'm not marching right in for no damn reparations, Charles. That's on you if you want to do that one. Because I don't, you know, this is the only quote unquote revolution that was never fought for, Charles. I don't think too much blood was. I mean, people fought. Not to say people's blood wasn't spilled to get to where we were, but it wasn't a violent revolution in the sense that other countries have factored in to get us the quote unquote civil rights. Or am I mistaken on that, Charles? You know.
Well, I tell you that the Civil War, once again, it was a devastating war.
Hmm.
And you know, a lot of people want to say it wasn't just about slavery; it was more about states' rights. But the thing is, um, what you have to take away from the fact that we have not been great enough not to have a civil war like so many other countries have, where people are fighting their own kind. We've
Right.
we've had it right here, and it shows just how far how hatred can take you to a place where you're ready to kill someone, um, just so that you can do what you want to do.
Hmm.
You see, um, a lot of people they always talk about the Bible, and I don't say anything for popularity reasons. I say because I do a lot of reading, a lot of studying. I see there's an argument right now going on
Yes, it's
about
going.
melanin,
Yeah. Hmm.
and I would just advise those discussing melanin to look up the word melancholy, and look up the root of melancholy, and what the word melancholy means, and what's at the basis of the word um,
Melon,
melancholy. Okay,
melancholy, melanin.
and the whole thing is this: when we get into a discussion of whiteness and blackness, uh, Jesus was white, Jesus was black. All of this, it gets away from being resolved because religion is like philosophy. Religion is, in a way, philosophy. You're dealing with questions that can't be answered. They'll tell you, when the belief in God is based on faith because
Hmm.
you can't prove God. Many people will tell you, are we talking about Jesus as a historical figure? Because Jesus has not been proven. They've never found Noah's Ark.
Hmm.
These things. We fight over the race of Cleopatra, Hannibal, and you got people who say he was black, she was black. We just don't know. When they say Africa, a lot of people, as soon as you say Africa, they want to see black people. You know, that's presumptuous. Okay, but I'll tell you one thing:
Hmm.
it gets back to how you control a people. I don't care black, white, or polka dot. You control a people, controlling how they think. You see, and listen to me good. You control them by teaching them not how to think, but what to think. That's where the dumbing down of a culture comes into place. That's where we would discuss where perception is reality.
Hmm.
We see the world, and unless we know how to question the world, we'll just accept what we see based on how we've been taught to see it. Okay,
exactly, yeah. Yeah, and then
and
you have to factor in who controls what you're in control of what you expose yourself to, but who's in control of the media and what is their
the
agenda,
information. That's
you
why it
know,
gets back to
so
what I told you before. The information. You have to make sure that the information you're given is not given to keep you in formation, in
right,
line with the way they want you to be in
right,
line. So,
right.
so the thing is, um, the color thing. I don't even want to get into it, okay?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
because um, uh, you have some people who say melanin. And I met what's her name. We talked when I was in college. She came to college, my college. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. I
Mhm.
love her. I love her ideas. But is what she postulated the be all end all of a particular point of view? No, I had some issues with what she had to say, but she made sense.
Mhm.
But the thing is, one thing I think you have to look at in terms of empirical um, proof, I would say when we go and look all over the world, more people are of color than they are not.
Right. So you're talking about
And
tribes that are fighting for the survival. White folks want to maintain what they consider purity, and black folks, people of
the
color,
reason
they
why
want to
it's a
maintain their
fight,
culture and heritage as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's the reason why it's a fight is because, like what Baba Dick said, race is an attitude,
Hmm.
and they've been given this attitude of whiteness is greatness, whiteness is supreme,
Hmm.
and they're living, they're going to live and die on it, they're going to ride or die on it. And the thing is, what we have to be careful of is like Eleanor Roosevelt said, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Do not buy into the lies. Know how to challenge the system. And when you challenge the system, you challenge what comes out of the system. We have to know who we are. When you know who you are, no one can control you. See, the colonized mind is that you do not think with who from a framework of who you are. You're thinking from a framework of who you want to be like. And that is the reason why we can never get our true liberation.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, that's a great way to close, Charles. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you didn't intend to be on as long, but and I really appreciate everybody sticking with us. We're working on some things. So, to address the comment, super chat is a way that as we're chatting, people can plug in donations as we speak, and then when people see donations, they're encouraged. I'm still talking to our YouTube rep about how to activate that on the streams, because it's, I think, 3 or 4 different web streaming programs that you can use to do it. And I've not gotten the information yet, but what I did do, I think yesterday I posted a video. We just got in these buttons. You saw them, right, Charles?
I
The
love them. I love them.
Okay, so professor approved limited edition uh real black TV buttons, and if you donate $3 or more, I'm happy to mail them to you. I mean, if you see me on the street, I'll give them to you, but it costs about $2 or $3 to mail them, not counting the gas to the post office. So we want you to have them, and that's a way if you want to PayPal or Cash App. We can use that money to do other things, get things
Yeah,
to
Mike,
upload and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah.
I just want to say one thing in closing.
Hmm.
One of the things I'd like to do with this opportunity, we just had Scoring 57 join in.
Hey, scoring 57.
I think people being of color is a matter of semantics. Everyone is of color. So here's what I tell everyone: go to the Bible and see. who is described as being black and who is described as being white. You know, a lot of people see the Bible as a history book. They call it a holy book. It's
Mhm.
used by many people to prove the world. I say right here, right now, you go to that Bible, you will not see anyone described as black or white.
Mm. Well, amen. So, well, thank you, Charles. Thank you, everybody, for checking in, tuning in. So we're gonna try and do this every Thursday, at least, and then as we get this perfected, we'll have a way of the next level would be to bring in uh, other guests besides Charles to discuss issues, and we have a short list of people that have agreed to do things with us on the podcast, and then you can chime in with your questions and encouragements, and then the next wave when I figure out, like right now I'm working from the laptop. When I get the other room renovated, I can use a bigger mixing board, and we'll actually be able to take your calls as well, which will be kind of cool. So we're really trying to develop that part of it, and again, thank you everybody for checking in. Is there any? I can't see Charles. Anybody? Any questions or comments that you want to address before we sign off that have popped up in the last minute or so?
No, these are a lot of new people that join you live.
Yeah,
I never see these names um, on
this,
some of the things that you post up. You know, um, these are new names, and I'm curious. Why they come to the channel. Um, these are some interesting people, and they're part of the real black family. And I just want to say thanks for sharing your time with us, and peace and blessings.
yeah, peace and blessings. Yeah, oh, yeah, maybe there's a little lag. There could be a lag in it, so we're gonna log off in a second. But thank you all for joining. Yeah, the PayPal, I've been working with PayPal for over a decade. That's how we get all our membership payments and everything. I've never had an issue because we don't start no mess. Um, it's just helping, I mean, millions of people use PayPal. I don't have any fear of that being a problem. And again, we're only asking for $3 4. If you can donate more, then that's great, but we want you to have the buttons. It's not even a big issue there. And like I said, it's all the information is on the other video on the channel. But we started early. We did two segments. We're almost an hour and a half, Charles, for this particular chunk. So I guess go out and vote. Thank you for checking in, and I'll be up tomorrow, Charles. I get to interview Joseph Kahn, who is the director of a movie Bodied, and he's got two of his co-stars. So that's an interesting film that's playing at the film festival. It deals with cultural appropriation and rap battling, and Joseph Kahn has directed hundreds of music videos for Britney Spears and Eminem and U2, and even the Ghetto Boys. If you go all the way back, he's a music video veteran, and that should be an interesting conversation. I'm looking forward to. Um, but yeah, I think we're there. I think we made it right. I'm gonna put the mic down, and thank you, Charles. Thank you, everybody. Um, love you all, and together we make a fist. Right.